Welcome back to the Magic Kathy Show, Adam. I'm very excited, and not just you are, I am excited, also a lot of our listeners, because I announced that you would be back on the podcast, and our podcast on Bitcoin crypto has been very, very well listened to and well received. And so I'm excited to talk almost a year later, right, to the date. I think January 3rd this year, we talked about Bitcoin's birthday on that day, and also just what's going on in the crypto world. And now we have November. The nodes are about to shift into Taurus and Scorpio. A lot of people talk about crypto. There's been so much happening over the year, and in realms of like finances and everything. We prepare for the Pluto return of the US. That also happens in the realm of finances. So I feel like there's a lot in the air about shifts and changes when it comes to our thinking on money and abundance. And I mean, you are someone who has been preaching about the alternative for years on your podcast, right? You are so excited about crypto and everything that the space really offers us leading forward and already now. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk about what's going on in your crypto world and what you observe. And obviously we'll talk about astrology and in particular about Ethereum and Bitcoin, of course, but also all the other things and exciting opportunities that we have in the crypto sphere of the cosmos. So welcome.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. And yeah, our timing for these two conversations. The first one, was it January 3rd?
Yes.
That we
didn't plan it, but it happened to be that day.
That's the Genesis block. Actually learned, like, there's like a really important thing because everyone was just celebrating Bitcoin's birthday.
Yes.
Right. And so that's Halloween. And that's the white paper release.
True, I saw that on Sunday, right? Yeah. The 13th birthday was last Halloween, yeah.
Exactly. And for some reason, like in my mind, I thought that the white paper was released in the summer of 2008. So I would actually love to get the moment for the white paper release and just look at that chart, because I'm always looking at the Genesis block chart, which is kind of etched in my mind at this point. So yeah, I mean, it's November 3rd. So we're talking a couple of days after Bitcoin's true birthday.
Yes.
And then there you go.
And also only a few days before we have two other really significant things in terms of finances, which is the new moon in Scorpio, because it's exactly opposite Uranus and Taurus. But then also only hours after the new moon is precise or exact, we have Venus ingressing into Capricorn.
Nice one.
So, and that's going to be for 3 months. So I feel like the next 3 months also for crypto will be very, very transformative. Also because of the Pluto return upcoming for the US in January or in 2022. And also because of the final Saturn Uranus square, which we kind of touched on in the last episode, I think. All of the things, that are changing when it comes to finances. And I feel like around those Saturn Uranus squares that we had in February, June, and now in December, we felt that energy in the air of like, something needs to change in terms of finances, like a lot of new things coming up, a lot of restrictions. All of a sudden, your bank account tells you that you have to pay interest if you have too much money there, like things, like weird things happening with finances. And at the same time, obviously, a lot of like price fluctuations in terms of Bitcoin and the crypto world. And so what have you observed over this year? Because we went through a lot of waves when it comes to the crypto market. Right now, we are in a high again. Everyone is excited, but we also had challenging times, I would say.
Yeah, that mini bear market from May until August was actually very challenging, I think, for a lot of people. So yeah, I'll speak to where I think we are.
Yes.
And then you brought up the Saturn Uranus square.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about this all year. I think it's the transit of the year. Yeah. And there's two main narratives that can be tracked that are very, very specific to crypto. And it's exciting because there's like a conclusive moment on Christmas Eve with this. And in the history of Bitcoin / crypto, December is kind of a concluding month, right? Like the fall is always quite bullish, and then things kind of, you know, top out in an extreme way in December. So where we're at right now, like what are we talking? November 3rd, 2021. Like you said, everyone's getting really excited. Why? Because everything is moving. Everything is popping off, kind of like kernels in a pot making popcorn, you know? It's like, oh, one day it's Shiba, then the next day it's Bitcoin, then it's ETH, then it's Solana, then it's Makers, then it's Cardano. You know, it's just like
the Metaverse.
The Metaverse. Yeah, like when Decentraland and Sandbox, for example, were going berserk the other day, I immediately had, like, the first thought I had was like Zuckerberg. It's like, what did he do? And I like pulled up my phone, and he had announced there was a picture of him with the Meta in the background, like the rebranding of Facebook. I was like, that guy. So yeah, I mean, any kid basically who's grown up with Minecraft is completely primed to become a billionaire in the metaverse, you know? Yes. So not to get distracted, like we're in this narrative, and a lot of people think that we're going, and, you know, let me share the stock to flow chart.
Yes, 1 second.
Oh wait, you gotta allow me, because this will help people visually to understand kind of like the collective sentiment right now. And it's exciting, but also worrisome. So what we're looking at here is Plan B's stock to flow ratio. And it doesn't have like the entire history of price action in this particular ticker, but you'll get the idea. And I would say most people, aside from, you know, the perma bears, believe that we're going with Bitcoin at least to $100,000 in the next month or two, which is just insane when you think about it. Because again, when you and I talked last, it was like between 20 and 30 something. And even that felt like, I remember the sentiment between us. Like, oh God, is this going to keep going?
This is too good to be true.
Here we are a year later. And we're talking about $100,000 Bitcoin with ETH 10,000 plus, with Cardano $10. You get the idea. And so one of the fundamentals around it is called the stock to flow model, and it's based on the halving. So every 4 years, there's a halving to the block reward for miners, right? And no need to get technical around it, but basically what it means is the miners get rewarded half for the work that they're doing with their machines. And price, because of the stock or the supply, usually does this wild thing in the year after the halving where it goes a bit parabolic. And in the stock to flow chart, they're represented by lines that are vertical. And so you can see that this line here, which was in summer of 2016, the year that follows peaks out in December of 2017. Like I got involved somewhere in here. Like this is when I bought my first Bitcoin, like right after this halving in 2016, or it was early 2017. And then you see that what it does, and if we could see the previous two of them, like it does the same thing where the price comes up, it touches this horizontal line, but it usually blasts right through it. And so this is when Bitcoin went to $20,000. And then that was the blow off top, Christmas time, 2017. And then the brutal bear market that ensued. And then you have the halving, the one that happened in May of 2020, right? So not too long ago. And this is the last halving. And you can see that price has been crazy since then. But as history would say, it hasn't even come to touch this horizontal line, which it has every single time since the history of Bitcoin. And it's almost as, well, it is as if Satoshi programmed this in. Like the deflationary nature, well, maybe the deflationary because there's only 21 million Bitcoin, but just like the block reward and just like how the tokenomics work with Bitcoin, like it's just through adoption and network effect, it's made to go up, you know? And so if this model keeps going the way that it always has, we're going to see at least, according to the stock to flow, $127,000 Bitcoin. And that's by, look at the date at the bottom, that's by December. Now, this time period is really important for two reasons in regards to the astrology. Let's see, let me bring that up.
I almost want to be a conspiracy theorist here and be like, because it's something I've been reflecting on a lot, and like I always like keep in the back of my mind, what if this is just a tool to pump all of the fiat money into a different thing that we can then pop like a bubble, and then we solve all of the inflation, kind of, not all of the inflation issues in exaggeration, but in a way, you know, to get people pumping money into a different kind of system, and then we pop the bubble, because again, the Pluto return is coming up and there are a lot of synchronicities with like both charts. So yeah.
So as far as it being conspiratorial coming from Satoshi and a
man that doesn't even exist, really, we don't know.
Yeah, and like the whole story about crypto, like I'm not so sure. I think that, you know, when it comes to the Pluto story, you know, you can see in the Bitcoin chart in the middle here that, you know, Pluto's at 1 degree Capricorn, and he created Bitcoin as a response to the corruption that's in the system, right? To create a perfect currency. And I really do subscribe to that narrative. I've read the white paper. I'm not smart enough to understand all of the points of it, or, you know, I'm not a programmer, but I, you know, understand Bitcoin well enough and a lot of these other cryptos. And it is a solution to the problem because of its set market cap, because it can't just be printed into infinity, because of the way the tokenomics work. It's absolutely genius in what it is. And so like the conspiratorial part of me is where you have, I mean, like top 3 Bitcoin holders in the world, of the top 3 are China and the US. And so it's like, you know, these two countries have more Bitcoin. It's like BlackRock, I think, China, US, last time I looked, of like the top 3. And then, you know, Michael Saylor's in the top 10,
of course.
and people like that. And so that worries me, you know. It's like the dump fast, but also like regulation that completely cripples the space for, you know, a few years, half a decade, who knows. But it seems like there's a wonderful embrace happening, right? Like that, at least that's what it looks like at the moment. It looks like there's, you know, a lot of embracing of the technology that's happening. So if we go back to that December thing that seems to always kind of occur with Bitcoin, there's 2 significant events, and these transits are outdated, but and will still be relevant here. One of which is the final Saturn Uranus square, which we kind of touched on.
Yeah. All
right. That's happening on the eve of Christmas of this year. And so there's already been 2 of them. One was in March, one was in late July, and this is the final one. Or wait, no, that's sorry. Saturn in the North Node is the second thing I'm talking about. So we'll bookmark that because there's a couple of things I want to say about it. But like that happens in December, and usually when a certain transit like this, whether it's the Pluto Uranus squares or the Saturn Uranus squares, like there's kind of a conclusive event that happens around it.
So what you were talking about is so you want to talk later about Saturn on the North Node?
Well, that's I was just going to bring it up. Okay. And so the other piece,
because I will actually bookmark that too, because I want to talk about that too, because of 10 degrees and the significance of 10 degrees next year. Just bookmark that forward. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just saying now that, you know, Saturn's already touched the North Node of Bitcoin, which is 10 degrees twice. And that was in late March, late July, and then the final one's going to be on the solstice of this year. So like basically that week around the winter solstice is massive again for Bitcoin. Now, really important context here is that the traditional ruler of the North Node is Saturn. The modern ruler is Uranus.
And that's what I wanted to talk about, because Uranus stations to move forward again on January 19th and at 10 degrees of Taurus. So exactly squaring, basically exactly squaring the Bitcoin North Node. And on top of that, we have an eclipse of 10 degrees Taurus as well in May. So also squaring the Bitcoin North Node. And on top of that, on the day that Uranus stations, we will have, I mean, it depends if you work with the true or the mean nodes, but on that day, we have the nodes shifting into a Taurus and Scorpio as well. Like January 19th is a very hot day as well, I feel like. And on top of that, obviously, we have Venus retrograde around that time. I don't know which degree she will be retrograde, but somewhere in Capricorn, which must hit something in Bitcoin's Capricorn stellium.
I mean, definitely. Of which to say, for anyone listening that can't follow with all the astro lingo, like between now and January is massive. And most people in the space don't know astrology at all. They make fun of it, like the moons that have been catching on, like the new and full moon as tops and bottoms kind of thing. They just laugh at it. But like there is correlation. I mean, for a while there, like every single full moon was a bottom and every single new moon was a top. It was crazy. And some of these TA guys I listened to were starting to use it because it is an indicator in trading view. Like you can put them in there, you know. And I was listening to all these guys talk about it, but talk about it wrong. They're talking about it flipped. They're like, every new moon's a bottom and every full moon's a top. Like, just remember that. It's like, guy, no, just look at the chart. Look at the sky. Like, it's the opposite of what you're saying. So anyhow, like the astrology hasn't really caught on in the space, but like when we talk about this, like almost everyone's narrative is the same. There are some folks that think there's a super cycle happening, that it's just going to keep going on forever because of institutional adoption and nationwide adoption and all this kind of stuff. I'm completely not in that camp. Like, I've been in crypto long enough to know that, like, I mean, if for example, if you just survive the mini bear market from May until August, you understand what goes on, because like these investors, these whales, these people are very smart and savvy, and like they are controlling things, and things don't go up forever. You know, and so like just a 20% correction in Bitcoin, like, come on, like that can happen in one candle oftentimes, you know. So no, I'm in the case that not only are we going to see a correction, but I think alongside an absolute market collapse, I think it's going to be the worst bear market we've ever seen. That's my feeling around it. And, you know, a lot of people won't agree with me on that, but like with the state of the world right now, and with so much institutional entities and big players now involved, I think it's going to be even wilder. That's my feeling. And so between now and January, do not be afraid, my friends, to take profits, right? Like, just don't get greedy is my ultimate message. No financial advice, but don't be afraid to take profits between now and the end of the year.
I love that perspective. And I've also heard actually from another astrologer that we will have that exactly what you were talking about, like a deep winter from 2023. So that next year will be more, so because I haven't looked into the transits of 2023, but there are probably, or like there are apparently more indicators on that it's 2023, especially with Pluto moving into Aquarius and all of that. So I mean, we have to see, because I kind of feel like those squares, like Saturn Uranus squares, but also the squares to the North Node, and in a way the trine at the same time to the Bitcoin sun is helpful for Bitcoin. And so, yeah, I mean, we have to see how it plays out. But again, a Venus retrograde can also mean that we have to really reconsider how we approach this whole thing when it comes to finances, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's going to be a lot of crazy hitters and surprises. I mean, one of the things that, I mean, it's my deepest concern, to be honest, is how the SEC is going after stable coins right now. And I'd like to think all they're going to do is just make it so you can't earn yield in like Nexo, Celsius, BlockFi, you know, like Magic Internet Money, UST, Terra Luna, stuff like this. And they'll just completely demolish that because of how it threatens the banks and bond yields and everything. I don't know if it's going to stop there. I mean, I've always been a little worried about stable coins, and unfortunately, like that's kind of how I play the market. You know, like when I take profits, I take them into my stable coin of choice, which at the moment is Terra Luna, UST.
I love Terra Luna as well. Just, I guess I'm biased with the name, but just like Luna. Like...
biased with the name, but also like the technology. I mean, if you use it, it's incredible. I mean, who doesn't want 20% on the dollar? I mean, it's incredible. So what does that mean? Like, what if they like throw that out in the middle of all of this? And so then what are people taking profit into? Now, I do understand the argument as well that, well, if that happens, then everyone's just going to be putting their stable coins into Bitcoin. And then Bitcoin will just go parabolic. if that's the case, hey, I mean, why not? Like, that sounds fun too. But like, it is concerning. I think like there's like an intuition I have that this party has gone on a little too long without serious regulation. Like when you look at meme coins and these like absurd yields you get for like farming and pooling your monies and stuff like that, like it's not going to go on forever. And so that's like my legitimate concern. And like whether that happens during the Venus retrograde or with the final square. And I'll bring this up. So on my podcast, I recently talked about how you can track the history of the internet with the Saturn Uranus cycle. Like with the conjunction in the late 80s was the beginning of it. The first square was the Y2K crypto or .com boom. The opposition was the birth of Bitcoin. And then here we are, the final square.
And the internet did have this Saturn return now, right?
Saturn return for, yeah, the World Wide Web would have been having, exactly. So that's one narrative, and I think it's really fascinating, like when you get into the details of it. But another, they all correlate with massive market crashes. So there was a huge market crash in the late 80s. There was the .com crash. There was the subprime mortgage crash in 2008-9. And then here we are. And some people, I guess, may count the COVID crash as being a part of it, but like the Saturn Uranus square hadn't begun with the COVID crash. And I just really do think we're set up for probably the scariest thing we've ever went through as a species. And that's not me being a FUD slinger or anything like that. I think you just have to have your eyes open and understanding what the Fed is doing and how all this is working. And like, when does that end? And that's why it makes me even more excited about crypto. Like I'm very, very excited about like having most of my worth tied up in my own wallets in crypto that can't be touched. And like, even if like there's a crazy regulation storm and all of this, I mean, I think that there's now enough adoption that an entire world, a metaverse, if you will exist on chain, regardless of any governments try to regulate it out of existence.
Yeah, so, it's actually fascinating too, because I mean, a lot of people haven't even touched or dipped their toes into crypto. And then, we have people that have the majority of their wealth in it. And I've even over the last, the universe probably brings all of these people into my life. Like everyone that I talk to has basically the majority of their money in crypto and even lives off staking or lives off, the interest. And I mean, I to a certain degree do that too, but I'm still like cautious to a certain degree where I don't have the majority of my money in crypto, but at the same time feel like an intense urge. But then I feel like that's the Saturn Uranus playing out in my life, where I'm just like still afraid. Like there's still this like Saturn restrictive piece of me that doesn't allow the breakthrough, even though inside of me, I know either I invest in property and land, or I invest in property and land in the crypto sphere, because otherwise my money will just be gone by soon, basically.
You thinking about investing in the metaverse?
Yes.
Getting some land in Sandbox or something?
I am invested in Mana, Decentraland.
Yeah.
So yeah, I invested in Mana.
So you have land in
Yes.
Decentraland?
Yeah. I mean, why not own land in Decentraland? That's amazing.
Totally. I'm kicking there's a lot of moments you get to kick yourself in crypto. And one of them is, like I've been interested in Mana from the beginning. I think like the name is the first thing that like drew me in, but I remember when they first had like a beta of what they were doing, I was like, this is like so interesting. Like it's not my world, it's not something I'm going to be super engaged in, but maybe I should buy some property. It was worth absolutely nothing at the time when they first started selling plots, and I'm like, am I really going to put money into digital land? And then now, I mean, my God, like real estate in the metaverse is quite expensive.
Yes, it is. I mean, just as in the real world, but I mean, and it's actually, I think I've heard it on another podcast, that analogy to understand for someone who doesn't know anything about crypto and Bitcoin and all of that. And he brought that analogy, which I think is brilliant to understand the difference between Bitcoin and the blockchain and crypto and all of that, right? Because everyone is just like putting it in one box. And the way he explained it was basically the beginning of the internet, right? When you were talking about the internet, everything was just email. And so when people talk about crypto, everything is just Bitcoin, but it's just so much more. And if you would own a piece of the internet, which would be Bitcoin, for example, then you're basically rich by now, right? And that's how you can understand it. But then again, there is on the blockchain, you have apps like on the internet, you have apps and programs that belong to other ideas, or like Instagram, whatever you name it, like all of the things that we have on the internet. And that's how you can better understand that there are other projects and other companies and other things involved on the blockchain and on the crypto sphere of the planet. And so I think that's a good way to understand why it's also so important to own just Bitcoin, to just have a piece of the internet that belongs to you, so to speak, right? Yeah. So I thought that's good to understand for a lot of people. I have probably no idea what even, Mana, Decentraland, Metaverse, what it even is, because it's kind of like advanced crypto talking, right?
It is. But I mean, my God, like everyone's about to know what the Metaverse is.
Yes.
Beloved Facebook is turning into it.
They know more what Shiba is than what Bitcoin is, probably.
Yeah. And it's a great point, and I want to bring it up because you just mentioned Shiba, and then you made a case for Bitcoin.
Yeah,
I have always been in the camp of the majority of what you should be exposed to in crypto is Bitcoin. Because it is fundamental, and I really do think it's the gold standard to all of this.
And you never sell your Bitcoin.
That's not true. I'm not Michael Saylor. That's a ridiculous idea. I have a lot of friends, especially now, that own 0 Bitcoin. They think they have this idea that they're priced out of Bitcoin, which is also absurd. People don't understand that you can just, buy Satoshis, buy into it whenever you have a little bit of extra money, but they feel like they're priced out of it. And so enter meme coins like SHIB. So for anyone that doesn't know, Shiba Inu, it's this little meme coin. A lot of people are like, it's not a meme coin, it's a blockchain. You can swap on it, you can stake and all this. Okay, it has more use cases than Doge, but still, it's a freaking dog coin. And it's, a quadrillion market cap or something like that. And so it's this wild idea that has made people very, very wealthy if they got in early. Like that thing that went around last week where someone put $7,000 into SHIB in the summer of 2020, and it's now worth like $5.6 billion.
Wild.
I think I said 56 billion on my podcast, but $5.6 billion. And I have a few friends, like I was hanging out by the fire the other night, and one of my friends was like, yo, I think he put a similar amount. He's like, I put like $7,000 into SHIB when it was at its lows. He's like, I'm waiting to become a SHIB millionaire off of it. I was like, wow. Like how, like, I mean, he had already like 15x his money, but he doesn't have any Bitcoin, right? And like, that's the thing. Like, I don't understand. I mean, everyone has their own approach to this. And I think anything that's a polarity is toxic. And so like the Bitcoin maxis are toxic, and they pride themselves on being toxic. Get out of here. SHIB and Dogecoin maxis, like they only need to be exposed to these like crazy small cap altcoins to make it. Also, it's insane because like they haven't experienced a rug pull probably. Like a lot of these new investors haven't experienced things going down 90+% like a lot of us have. And I think that initiatory experience creates like incredible wisdom when it comes to not just crypto, but just investing in general. Like I have, as I think most of us that survived 2018, 2019, like honest to God, PTSD.
Yeah.
You like whenever Bitcoin does, 30% corrections, or like it breaks like the 50-day moving average on the weekly or anything like that, like I start getting like panicky a little bit. I'm like,
especially if you have the majority of your money there, it's very normal, right? I mean, how did you even survive the summer as well? Because I mean, on top of that, you have all the crazy things in the world, right? And probably like more restrictions, like with lockdowns. And I know you travel a lot as well, and like it's just like crisis overload.
So how did I survive the summer? I mean, my strategy is, again, like based off of what I was just saying, like it's a pretty conservative approach. And that, I'm, 90+% exposed to crypto, but I have zero qualms in taking profit on the way up. So I'm in the process of doing that right now. And so, back in April, May, when Bitcoin hit 64K and ETH went beyond 4, like I was selling heavily into stable coins. And so when the correction happened, my only mistake with that was not getting rid of my like small cap altcoins. Like a handful of those like are down 90+%, just like in 2018, which is just, it's so brutal to experience that. And, a few of them will never come back. And like, this getting involved, that like there will be rug pulls, there will be failed projects, but like when you watch it happen, it's hard, right? But like, and so for myself, I know how to read charts just as well as I can read astrology charts at this point. Like I've been engaged for 4 years and like taking courses and really, really learning everything I can. And so I feel like I can read, or I can do TA as well as I can do astrology. And so I just wait for certain, indicators to occur and flash for me. And then I just jump back in. And so I took all of my stable coins that I had setting aside, like UST, getting that interest. And then I went in hard. Like when Bitcoin went to 28, 29, like I just went crazy, and I went crazy. And a lot of the other ones that I love dearly, which maybe could be the segue into ETH, but Solana and Luna and Avalanche and DOT, like all of these layer ones. And the reason for that is because as a user of crypto, being engaged with DeFi ever since its inception, ETH is in trouble. Ethereum is not usable.
Do you have an Ethereum chart right here?
I do. And my friend Gary Caton revised the Ethereum chart, and I'm still sitting with it. His whole reasoning has to do with actually, where is the reasoning? Let me read it to you, because he sent me this email. So I'll show the two charts, but he was saying that the ETH dev house was in Berlin. And so Gavin Wood and Vitalik were there when the Genesis block was mined. And so it changes the chart, like the one you and I were looking at last time, which is this chart here.
Yeah, Taurus rising.
Yeah, he doesn't agree with this chart. He thinks it's this chart based on them supposedly being in Berlin. I haven't done my own research on this, but like the one thing that really does shift that's of interest to me is the moon. So in the chart that Gary is proposing, it's a 26 Capricorn moon, which brings us very close to those degrees we were already talking about, right?
Pluto on the moon is definitely not a nice transit.
No.
Yes.
Right? And so we have
I've
Pluto
had
transiting
that.
the moon.
Yes. In my life, I know that.
And then in the second one, it's, it's
Saturn
a similar story.
I mean, yeah.
It's a similar story. It's where the great conjunction happened and Pluto's not there yet. A case for Gary is the fact that I feel the death throes of Ethereum right now.
Which,
it feels
if you
like
have
a Pluto transit.
Yeah, if you have a Pluto on the moon and then you have a Saturn opposite the sun, I mean, what, if it would be a person, I would be like, oh dear.
Yeah. No, this really, it stinks because, I have a lot of ETH. I have always been into ETH, and I know a lot of people would not agree with me on this, but using Ethereum right now is not an option. Like, for example, like the amount of coins I still have on my MetaMask that I accumulated over the past, 2-3 years, I feel like they are being held hostage in that wallet. Why? Because to exchange them in Uniswap, for example, the average fee over the past 2 weeks is $120. I've seen it as bad as $800. I've seen it as good as $100 in the past 2 weeks. Now compare that to the beginning of the year. Like fees on ETH were under $20 to exchange. Now people don't understand this, and I think a lot of people, like probably a lot of people in the SHIB army, if that's what they're called, are getting burned by this one too, is that sending any ERC20 token, which is many of the alts, also is absurd. So the average fee on that, just sending any amount, like if it's $5 of Ethereum you want to send to a friend, you're going to be paying like at least like $50. $50. And people like the ETH maxis are like, well, it's a good thing because every time that's happening, ETH is being burned. What's also being burned is your ETH bags. Like you're paying so much money. And so I feel like all these coins are being held hostage. And like the only silver lining that I can take from this is that it's forcing me to hold. Because I'm like a lot of people where, you know, like once my things double or triple, like I'll sell. Like I don't want to like, you know, because I have that like PTSD, like I'll just like sell and get out of my positions. But it's just forcing me to hold these little shit coins that I have. And actually it's like some of it is paying off quite well. So that's like the fundamentals case for ETH. You see it, Pluto transiting the moon, Saturn opposite the sun.
The South Node will be on Saturn as well soon.
That's true, a shedding of the skin moment, big time. And so enter in other layer ones, right? And all the competition isn't even in the arena yet. Like Cardano is not fully rolled out yet. Neither is Polkadot. But using a Solana, for example, or using Avalanche, or even using like these layer 2 solutions to ETH, like Arbitrum. Oh my God, Kathy. Like it is literally night and day. Like when I started using Solana and, you know, like migrating as much as I can over there, even Binance Smart Chain, like migrating everything I can and paying the fee and just getting it over with. And then using these new chains, it's revolutionary. And if ETH in this ETH 2.0 situation doesn't solve the problem, I honestly think ETH is in serious trouble.
I mean, that's what I think, you know, a Pluto transit is obviously it's death and rebirth. So with the 2.0, there is an opportunity for a rebirth maybe, right?
Hopefully, you know, I mean, I am not a programmer. Like, I don't know how this stuff works, but the fact that there's things like Arbitrum and what's the other one, the ZK rollups thing, losing the name, but there's things on ETH, even Matic, that they already exist. And I just don't understand how there can't be like a quicker solution to what's happening at the moment. Again, I don't understand blockchain programming languages and stuff, but like it is so intense. And a lot of people, again, aren't aware of it. And so they're buying Ethereum because they're FOMOing in. And then they're, you know, say someone, you know, they buy $100 of Ethereum on Coinbase. They pay a $20 fee or more to do that. And then like, oh, I want to put that in my wallet. And so they send it into a wallet and they pay $50. By the time ETH gets into their wallet, they have $30 of ETH.
Nothing. Yeah, it's so insane.
That's real. And like it was Solana and all these others, like it's negligent fees. It's instant. The yields for farming are way better. I mean, and also the marketing around Solana, like just everything with FTX and Solana is pretty crazy. It's like awesome. I watched the World Series last night and the whole game was FTX behind the plate. Are you in? Question mark is their tagline. So looking at these transits here, oh my goodness.
Also,
like, ETH's in trouble.
I mean, if that's the real chart and we have a 26 Capricorn moon, we have the Venus retrograde, and with the Venus retrograde, we have multiple Venus Pluto conjunctions, and one of them must be on the moon.
It'll be close.
Yeah.
It'll be very close. And, with everything I just said, I also have like a very strong intuition about what's going to happen in the coming months with ETH, is that it's not going to get better. So what that means is if you have any ERC20 tokens that are stuck in your MetaMask, or, you don't really know like cheaper ways of exchanging your ETH, I think that the fees could get as bad as like an average to $500 plus. Like, I think that can happen. Like, once like this meme coin thing like gets a little nuttier again, and then like you mentioned the metaverse, like once people are like really going crazy in the metaverse with gaming and renting and selling properties and everything, that's all on Ethereum. Like, it's going to clog up the network, and that's why the fees go up. It's not like there's some centralized entity being like, oh, this is valuable, so we're going to charge more. No, it's about block space. You're paying gas fees to get on chains.
Can you in that context, because I feel like some of our listeners also don't really understand like how it's not just one coin that we talk about, because so many things are built on the Ethereum platform. So if something happens to ETH, how would that create a ripple effect for all the other coins and like the market, and also the prices and everything?
Exactly. So I don't think ETH is going to die per se, right? Like, I think ETH is solid. I think ETH will always be around, but as far as it being replaced, right, like as like the number one layer one that people want to use, it's very clear at this point. And in my long-term case is with Cardano. Like, people sleep on Cardano, and they, have issues with Charles Hoskinson and stuff like this. But like from the very beginning, like I've always had a very clear understanding of what Charles is up to. And I think Cardano is going to be the winner. I think once everything rolls out on Cardano and it's cross-chain compatible and everything is working smoothly with their DEXs, and just like on Ethereum, right? Like all the DeFi, the metaverse, everything on Cardano, I just have a very strong conviction that Cardano is going to win. And I'm eager to see that happen.
So just imagine we would have Cardano price at the level of Ethereum. So it's almost like 4,000x. I would take that. I'm invested in Cardano, and I'm not gonna, I'm just having it sit there until it's ready, whatever. Yeah.
Do you have it? And that's another thing. Like, and so the amount we've been able to use with Cardano, and I have that chart as well. Let me pull it up. So people are probably confused right now. It's all right. They can re-listen when they know more.
Yes.
They'll understand. Did I share it?
Yes, I can see it.
You see the Cardano? Okay. So with Cardano, we don't have, full DeFi, or really hardly any DeFi available yet. That's all being rolled out.
And that's, for just like speaking about astrology, I always say cosmic poetry. How is that now 13 degrees Scorpio moon, when we have so much around that degree point next year and this year as well? So clearly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And the South Node is at 22. Aquarius, which again, we have a lot of stuff happening right now too. Jupiter,
a nodal flip with Bitcoin. Yeah. But the point I want to say about Cardano is that, with a lot of these layer one blockchains, you have this option to stake, right? And the toughest one is Ethereum, right? Like, the way it rolled out, it's like you need 32 Ethereum to stake your Ethereum. And like, there's options of doing that different ways now, but like,
you can get interest at some, on some exchanges and like wallets, but it's not the same as you can literally stake, your Solana or your Cardano, like on,
Well, exactly. And, there's also like, if you have your ETH staked right now on ETH 2.0, like it's locked up for a while. And a lot of people, like even with like one of them that's called Cosmos, like Adam, like the lockup period with that coin is 21 days. And I've actually experienced a terrible moment with that, where I had a bunch of my Cosmos locked up, and then it went parabolic, and I wanted to sell some, and I couldn't because it was locked up. Whereas Cardano, there's no lockup. You just put it, in like I store a lot of my Cardano in Exodus wallet, and they have a node connected to their wallet, and so you just put it in your wallet. That's your own wallet, not connected to an exchange or anything like that, and you get 5% on your Cardano, and then you can send it, you can sell it, you can do anything you want. There's no lockup. And it's things like that like, why doesn't everyone realize that that's going to be a market winner? People don't want to do lockups, you know, and like you can incentivize it. Like Adam is now doing that, like where you get way more yield if you lock it up for longer. But like, no one wants that. And I think Cardano is just going to destroy the field when it comes to everything once it rolls out.
Why do you think Cardano, not Solana? Because Solana is really on the forefront right now as we speak.
Yeah, I love Solana. I mean, it's everything about it is what I think Cardano is going to do, just better. And the main thing is people, like the true spirit of the space is decentralized, and Solana is too centralized for a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line. And Cardano, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of them, is my real understanding of it. Like, I think that there will, like, you know, after the dregs of the bear market that I think we'll inevitably experience, they'll all still exist. Will SHIB exist? Or will a lot of these like aspiring alt projects exist? I am not sure.
I feel like with Shiba, I even said that to one of my friends. At some point, it already made Bitcoin or the crypto history with everything that happened. And so I feel like that will always be around as like the prime example of a shitcoin that made someone millions, and obviously got into news and stuff like that. But then the other shit coins that's questionable, like Floki, and I even invested just for fun into Elon just because of the name, and I was just like, maybe something will happen to it. I don't know, maybe not, you know, it's not a big deal if not, it's not too much money, but it's just fun to play with. But it's obviously there's nothing behind it, and obviously at some point, and I always want to emphasize on that too, it's with your money, it's energy, you vote for something, so you invest in something that you also should believe in. So you shouldn't just get into it for the sake of the money, but really believe in the project, like really look into the company, look into what is behind it, like what is their vision, right? What are their values, especially now that we move nodes in Taurus, right? What is the value that I want to feed into with my own money, hard-earned money, right? What do I want to vote for? Do I want to vote for a bubble that might burst, right, and just throw money out of the window? You can do that for fun, but it's not something for the long term.
True. That's great advice. Even though it's not financial advice, but it is really, really good advice. And I mean, what you just said also answers the Cardano question. I mean, if you listen to Charles talk, like if you listen to his lectures and you understand his vision for Africa and like what he's really doing, and I mean, I don't know, maybe because he's a Colorado native and like I just resonate with him on that level. He's an eccentric. He's into a lot of the like similar things as me. I don't know, like out of everybody in this space, I've always resonated with him the most. And so when, you know, one of my greatest mistakes and also now one of my greatest moments in crypto was I listened to like a 3-hour lecture with Charles in late 2017, maybe early 2018. And I went in hard on Cardano. I was like, oh, I like this guy. I like this project. I like everything about it. The naming of things, the aesthetic, like all of it, I'm in. And that was when Cardano was at $1, like close to $1, I think. And then very quickly, it went down to pennies. Like Cardano got hit harder than most coins. I mean, they all kind of got destroyed in 2018. But like all this money that I had put in with this like strong investing conviction that I had because of the fundamentals, because I had, you know, went pretty much to zero. And I mean, it was one of the greatest lessons of my life, just being like, do I really believe in this technology? Like, or is it dead? Like, was I completely fooled by it all? And then it was around that time when the staking came live. And I'm like, right on, I'll just put all of my Cardano in this dataless wallet and stake it. And it was just generating yield throughout the misery of that bear market, and then it came back with a vengeance, and at the moment it's up 1,000% in the past 12 months.
Wow.
You know, and I don't think it's even close to being done. I mean, knowing what I know now about DeFi and what's possible in these spaces and how that's about to roll out on Cardano, you know, it's like, pay attention to Cardano projects like Sunday Swap and OccamFi, and God, there's so many of them. Like, because, you know, if anyone's really involved, like you've been seeing it with Polkadot lately, like everything on the Polkadot ecosystem is going crazy. That's going to happen with Cardano out of nowhere in the coming weeks. Not financial advice.
Not financial advice. Just we observe and we just share what we see. So what we see, right? But based on the astrology, when would you think and actually maybe that's another question, but I've really been working with the progressions and found that progressions are even more significant for market fluctuations and like things happening than traditional like transits in the natal chart. But based on the chart, maybe also like, where do you feel like could be an activation for Cardano that it finally gets out of the blues, kind of?
I mean, I think we're in it right now.
I feel like the new moon, seeing that the new moon must be literally on the new moon of Cardano is kind of interesting.
Very close to that. The Rahu at the moment, this chart, the transits are from July, a little outdated, but Rahu is on the ascendant at the moment. So the nodes are on the angles.
And that's actually just for a side note, in the new moon chart, Rahu is the apex of a yacht, which is pretty interesting, I think, for us collectively. I've just talked about it on the podcast. So it's a very significant new moon, the Scorpio one.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, you've done your research. If I was doing a crypto newsletter, I would have you working. Yeah, I mean, if I'm honest, like I peek at these charts and I mainly look at the Bitcoin chart as reference to everything, and then just the charts and fundamentals. I mean, we haven't really mentioned it yet, but like what's so crazy about crypto is what's called on-chain analysis, which is this like amazing X-ray vision into what's actually happening in the market. You know, like where's the majority of all the coins, what wallets are they on exchanges, they moving from exchanges, what's actually going on. And one of my favorite characters that talks about this stuff is Willy Woo. And I mean, the on-chain story for both Bitcoin and Ethereum is a little nutty. Like there's like a lag time to it as well. Like no one's selling, right? Like everyone's just accumulating as much as they possibly can. When it comes to Bitcoin, there's only so much, right? It's like there's 21 million Bitcoin, but there's actually around like 18, 19 million Bitcoin, if that. And the whole world's getting onboarded. So what does that mean? Supply and demand, again, the stock to flow chart. And so like price hasn't even caught up to what's happening on chain. And I think that's especially true with Cardano. It's like over 70% of Cardano is staked. No one's selling it. You know, everyone's convicted that like Cardano is going to go to like $10 at least. And so like when you understand fundamentals, when you understand astrology, when you understand the TA, which is not the fundamentals I'm talking about, just price action in markets, you have this trifecta of information input that allow you to make a sound choice with what you're doing. And you know, for me, like, yeah, I'm mainly exposed to it, but also like all my spending, everything I do is on chain, right? Like I have my BlockFi card, I have my crypto.com card, I use both. I mean, it's the future. We're here. Like it already exists. And most people, like you said before, don't even know what we're talking about. Like, how do I get involved? It's like, well, listen to our last conversation, listen to this one, YouTube some things, realize that like, it's still not too late. A lot of people think that one too. They think it's too late. I don't think it's too late.
And it's actually interesting how it even plays into the narrative that a lot of people were saying, and that kind of like even brings us back to what we mentioned earlier with Venus retrograde in Capricorn in 2013, 2014, which was a year after 2012, right? Where everyone said the world would end and a new world started, and like this timeline shift and all the things. And now I feel like we see really clearly that we literally live next to each other in completely, entirely different frequencies, realities, vibrations, worlds. Like you just sit next to someone that is completely like in this old traditional like matrix kind of thing, and then we talk about things like topics like that, and they were just like, are these aliens? Like Metaverse, crypto.com card, like what are they talking about? Staking, yielding, farming, what? Right?
Yeah,
it's weird. I mean, yeah, it's wild.
To be into astrology and into crypto is, I mean, that's definitely enough to freak out most people. But for those in the know,
I feel like it's inevitable if you are into astrology that at some point you I feel like it's easier to get into crypto if you know astrology, because of you are able. I feel like because you are able to read charts and you are able to work with the moon, and like I feel like that has a lot of influence on the crypto market and finances, and you understand the vibration of Venus, so you understand a lot about, you know, all of that. And like I just intuitively feel like it's easier because you, maybe that's why I even brought that in my own webinar that I did about the US PLUTO return and Bitcoin. I think because we have the ability to believe in something and to trust our intuition and in something that we cannot see, and there's no real evidence, quote unquote, for it other than observation and like tracking things, right? Because no one, I mean, you cannot really paint Pluto, and you cannot really, you know, have evidence of that it's actually that it exists, so to speak, right? It's the same with spirituality, your soul. No one can really know for sure, right? And it's the same with crypto. You don't know for sure. Nothing is certain anyways in this universe. But for us, it's easier, I think, to work with our intuition and to kind of have a feeling, I guess, or psychic senses.
That's a good point. Yeah. I like it. And I'll add this quote that there's this really silly guy I watch sometimes on YouTube, Tyler S. And in one of his goofy intros, he's like, how did he say it? He's like, welcome, where, you know, we talk about TA, which of course is astrology for men.
Oh, by the way, we didn't even
that's true.
It's technical analysis for those who don't know what TA stands for.
This, like, that's why I pull up the chart. Like, this is astrology for men. And it's very true, actually. Like listening to TA guys talk about charts is the same kind of vibe that people that are really into looking at astrology charts have, except that it's mainly men and astrology is mainly women.
It's true.
And so it's nice to have both, to have the balance. And I think it works on the same part of the brain, which is like pattern recognition. And so for me to learn to do this, I mean, it seems easy at first glance, but like, my God, you have no idea about like the trickster storm of emotions that come in with this. I mean, I think I've learned more, like a well-rounded education about life and my psychology engaging with crypto and charts like this than anything else in my life. Like, it's taught me a lot about just like my very mind and my nature, and like just how, I think ultimately how to be patient.
I think how to meditate on a chart like that, you know, how to not get caught up in the emotional roller coaster of the fucking prices changing all the time. And it's the same with an emotional wave that you might have, and you know, the moon cycle and the moon phases, and you just like lose your shit because the next shitstorm is happening in your emotional world. It's just observing, right? Instead of being so caught up by it. And I think that's, I mean, I said it before, the financial market is everything is based on emotions, really.
100%. I mean, we're just looking at emotion.
Yeah, we really do.
And, you know, like you just brought up such a good point there. And, you know, for anyone that's like just getting involved, like you have to understand, like there's never been a better performing asset in the history of the world, but also there's never been a more volatile one. So for example, like let's just look at this. This is the last thing I want to show, is we're just looking at a very small time frame, the 15-minute chart, right? And so here's what happens in the crypto space is Bitcoin runs up like from $60,000 to nearly, or yeah, up to 64.4, right? It goes all the way up here. People are like, we're going to the moon. It's amazing. And then because there's all these degen traders that listen to these TA guys on YouTube and they get their Bybit accounts and they like throw in long positions right here, like 20x, 40x, 60x long positions, and they don't know what they're doing. And so there's a lot of people that do know what they're doing that are controlling the market. And so like the moment that happens and like the market becomes over leveraged, which it always is, boom. And this doesn't look like much, but like 64 to again, nearly 60. Like that's a lot of money.
That's a whole Ethereum.
That's a whole Ethereum. And for us vets, we look at this and we're like, it's just another day in crypto. But like if you're new and you bought your first Bitcoin, like, I mean, well done if you bought your first Bitcoin at $64,000. And then all of a sudden it goes down to 60, you're like, oh dear, what have I done? Like, because when you like zoom out, you're like, oh wow, this could go down.
Yes.
This could go, okay, that's where we just were, 30K. Go to the weekly chart again, like, oh dear, like I just bought at the top. Everyone does it.
Yeah,
everyone buys at the top. And then like, it could go down to $3,000 again. I don't think so. I don't think we're ever going to see below 20,000, if I'm honest. Like this is the line in the sand, the last high. This is my conviction right there. I don't think we'll ever see a price beneath that ever again. Hold me to it.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Very likely. I don't think so either.
It's fun talking crypto with you.
I know. I love it. I mean,
yeah.
I feel like this time we didn't even talk too much about astrology.
We did.
We did. Yeah, we did. I think to wrap it up, again, like in regards to the Venus retrograde I was referring to, and I will link your webinar actually that you did on the Venus retrograde.
No, that's too old.
It was really good. The sound was not too great, but it was really good. Like what you talked about was really great, and it really inspired me to my latest episode on the Venus retrograde in Capricorn as well. So I'm going to link it down below, but maybe you will talk on your podcast also about it, because I think the next 3 months are very significant. And you, I know, also love, numerology. And I think, again, 3 months, that's the energy of creation. We had 3 Saturn Uranus squares, which is very much the Trinity as well. And in 2020, we had 3 Jupiter Pluto conjunctions, very Trinity. And then next year, we will have 3 hits for the Pluto return for the US. So there's a lot of Trinity energy, which is also very creative energy. So what do you feel like moving forward for? Because a lot of the things that we talk about, and if people are not into crypto, and it feels like very foreign and they are scary, because you kind of mentioned that you are screwed if you are not into crypto, kind of. So
yeah, I mean, I didn't say it that explicitly, but yeah.
You just said what you observe. Obviously, no financial advice, but just, what do you feel like with your intuition and everything? What would be the best, I guess, strategy for people to move forward and to survive this winter, especially with the Venus retrograde, with everything that is coming? And
right
the possible death of Ethereum as well.
Yeah, let me think about this one. I mean, it's a very complicated question.
I know.
I think, first, allow everyone to make their own choices about things. So stop fighting online about vaxxed or unvaxxed, masked or unmasked, all that. Like, that's just a waste of your time, hands down. All of this. And we're in a very historic moment where the uncertainty is grand, and everything is, unfortunately based on the economy, right? Like I just experienced in England, like a true gas shortage like I've never seen before. Like for almost 2 weeks, there was no gas. You couldn't get it. and it's because of the supply chain, and like some people blame Brexit, the government blames the people. But like these are symptoms of what's to come. I'm back in Boulder, everything's double price in the grocery store. I've never seen anything like it. And so the government tells us that inflation is not real. It's like we're being ghostlit by our government about everything. Or gaslit, sorry.
Yeah.
Ghostlit works too.
Halloween ghosts.
We're being ghosted and gaslit by our government. And you know, the fundaments of this go back to the beginning of COVID, which is something that, you know, we astrologers have been looking at for years. I mean, my first podcast on the Pluto Saturn conjunction was way back in 2014. You know, I've been like talking about this with my guests and, you know, doing my own shows on it for a long time. And, you know, what was the gift of it? It was this pandemic. But also, I would argue that a lot of it is financial, right? Like you had this massive market meltdown at the beginning of it, and then this insane policy of just printing trillions and trillions of dollars out of thin air. Like, what does that create? What does that mean? And how the government here in the US is now trying to tax its citizens to pay back that debt. Once people realize this, it's not going to go over well, because so many freaking people are now involved in crypto and whatnot. So they feel like they have this great hedge to the system, but like there's going to be a war around it. You know, I don't think it's going to be a traditional war like we think, but like it's going to be very interesting. And so my advice is to educate yourself about what's going on, right? Like I never, before 4 years ago, had much to say about the economy or about, I still don't give a shit about politics, but like what's going on in the finances and everything. Crypto's taught me a lot about this topic. And I think it's a really important topic for all of us to understand, because if you're not exposed to some asset, whether it's property or crypto or the metaverse or something, you're losing. Like you have to be exposed to something, because it's the only thing that's gaining in value at the moment. Like the dollar is losing value as all this other stuff is going exponential. And it's like very, very important to know that like you can start with $5, like use the Strike app, praise Jack Mallers and all of his good work. Use the Strike app. It's integrated with Twitter. Like have your friends like tip you on Twitter with the Strike app. If you're not aware of that, Google that too. There's all these different ways to slowly start stacking sats and start making a plan for yourself, because like you do want to be hedged against the corruption of our system. Again, this is why Satoshi created Bitcoin. This is the solution. And so if you're not a part of it, then I don't know what else to say.
And it's a very, you know, actually, I wanted to say two things to what you said. First of all, we so desire that power over our own life, right? And I like to say that in a very Saturn Capricorn way with my Saturn moon, Capricorn moon. With power comes responsibility. So we want our power and our freedom, but we don't want to take responsibility. What that means is that you have to, at some point, take care of your finances. Well, that's the truth. Like if you don't want to be bonded and tied to the government, then you have to make sure that you have your own sovereign way. And Bitcoin offers you a way, actually, or building your own business, you know, not being in the matrix in that 9-to-5 rat race. Then you have to just create an alternative for yourself. No one will knock on your door and be like, hey, here, that's the way. You just have to do the Capricorn thing every single day, educate yourself a little bit, maybe half an hour a day, listen to podcasts, audiobooks. There are so many ways. And that's also what I really, really love about the crypto community. Everyone is really helpful. Everyone helps each other to understand these different concepts, which is also very Aquarian, and that there's a big community aspect, which you've never seen on Wall Street, for example, you know, where it's like, hey, let's just have a chat and talk crypto with each other. Let's talk about stocks. No, like no one would do that.
Yeah, it's a very different energy. That's a good point.
And I love that about it, right? It's like, very much community. But also what I wanted to say, which I kind of feel like is actually beneficial for Bitcoin and that whole market. What you said, you know, that we are in the most uncertain times ever, right? And I feel like even this year with the Saturn Uranus squares and like so much tension in the air, we've really learned to sit with uncertainty. in a much more peaceful way. And I feel like that's helping us with dipping our toes into crypto, because that's like the most uncertain market ever. And I think Bitcoin is also born with a Saturn Uranus opposition, so it's by nature very volatile. I mean, it won't end anytime soon, I guess. Yeah.
Well said. I'm with you.
So thank you so much for your insights. Obviously, you also have an intro workshop on, how getting started with crypto, where you also share your exchanges and everything, right? Is that only on your Patreon, or is it also a standalone?
No, they're available on my website. So holstoheavens.com. You can download the videos. And I am now offering like crypto, I guess, tutoring. However,
yay, finally. I know last time you said you would never do that because I remember.
Yeah,
that.
well, there's a barrier to entry.
I know.
A bit. Yeah. So you got to be a golden patron.
Oh, okay.
to it.
The golden ticket.
Yeah, it's the golden ticket. And it's interesting. I remember creating that years and years ago, because it's $500 a month and you get everything I offer on Patreon, which is a lot of content actually. Plus the crypto tutoring. I remember creating it and being like, no one's ever going to pay that for a month.
Only if they can get the ticket to gold, which is Bitcoin.
Well, they have, first of all, like that was a good lesson, is that like people have, like there's been that, which is really neat. But ever since I mentioned the crypto, it's like, oh dear, what have I done? Like a lot of people are interested in it, which for me, like I'm at that stage in my understanding of all this stuff where I'm ready to share in a more like legitimate way. People need to know what I know, because everyone I've taught, their life has changed dramatically. And it's like, okay, well, I need to spread this information out more. And I'm not going to like change the podcast to a crypto podcast. I'm not going to really turn this whole thing around, but like I think just having a little bit of my world like open to that, and because I've learned this through astrology, that of course with teaching you learn more, and so for me, I want to experience that with the crypto. Like I want to see what happens once I start teaching it to folks in a one-on-one way, and so I do offer that as well.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's also, especially with the time that we have right now, we cannot not share it at this point. It would just be, I couldn't, I just have to. If you have an alternative and you can help someone, you obviously don't have to start with like trading and how all of that works, but even just teaching the basics, people need to start somewhere. And I think that's, we have to. That's also why I started talking about it more, because I've observed things and I'm like, okay, it's fun to do that for myself, but I mean, why would I not share it, And with crypto and just with astrology, with spirituality, period, you will never know everything. So waiting until you know everything to get started, it's just like you will never start. Never.
That's it. Well, I'm glad you're talking about it. And I'm glad we're able to have these conversations. Maybe we'll meet up in a year.
Probably. Let's see.
Talking the bear market.
Oh, we talked to the funeral of Ethereum. Just kidding.
I mean, again, I love Ethereum, but it's a love-hate at this point. It's heavy. And for anyone that might not be super aware, like be aware, like check the fees when you're sending tokens around, because like a lot of people don't know that, right? Like they just don't kind of have that awareness, and you can go broke using ETH right now.
Yeah, the other day a friend sent me Veracity, and I was not aware of the fees either, and he wasn't either. He's like, fuck, it was $80. I'm like, oh fuck, I'm sorry, but
just to send it.
Yeah. I mean,
so yeah,
read the fine print. That's another thing. Yeah. And also for someone who only knows about it's just Ethereum, like all the other things, it's definitely less expensive, because otherwise everyone could think, it's so expensive to send cryptos around and like coins around. It's not. It's just really the Ethereum network. So we'll see. All right,
Indeed.
Adam, thank you so much. It was obviously another amazing conversation. And yeah, we will probably have you soon again with whatever topic in whatever time. But I pray that everyone will reach out to you. Maybe you will have some golden members as well. And we will see how everything is going leading into 2022. Thank you so much.
Enjoy the ride.
Yes, you too.
We'll see you.
See you.